Hey folks, Dave here, and welcome back to the Backyard Battlefield. This, as you can see, is my real-world firearm series. And in this special episode, we're going to travel to the Eastern Front of World War I and look at the primary sidearm of the Russian forces during that war. We're going to compare it to the Battlefield 1 in the Name of the Tsar DLC, as well as the upcoming game Tannenberg, which the devs have provided us some footage of just for this video. We got tons to check out, guys. Let's go ahead and dive in. My rifle here would have been a battle pickup. This is an Austro-Hungarian M95 straight pull bolt action rifle. I have a whole video on this up already, but this is not the right weapon for the Russians. That would be a Mosin Nagant. We're gonna set it aside and we're gonna focus on the pistol. The revolver we're looking at today is the Nagant model of 1895. We're gonna talk a bit about the very unique design of this revolver, but before we do that, let's go ahead and put some shots down range. Now, I'm not super familiar with this revolver just yet. I've only put about 20 rounds through it, and the trigger is honestly pretty awful. So let's actually see if I can hit anything. So we're gonna go into single action, cock it. And that should be all. Yep. So this revolver has a very old school unload method. It was actually outdated even for its time in 1895 when Russia made it its standard issue pistol. You have to take the ejector rod right here and you have to do a couple of turns to unscrew it. And it's actually quite hard to figure out once it's totally unscrewed. There's no like feedback at all. So then you pull it out like that and you rotate it to line it up with the cylinder. And 2 clicks and we can start just like that. So 2 clicks, not quite. This is not a revolver you would want to actually have to reload quickly. With your gate open right there, you can then load new rounds into the cylinder. That's 7 rounds of ammunition that you have to reload and eject one by one. At the time, most modern revolvers had a self-ejection system. For example, the British break-action Webley revolver, you would empty all of your ammo and it would snap open and fling the brass out, and you could take a reloader with all the rounds lined up, just plug it in and then pop it loose and you're good to go. All your rounds are reloaded. With the Nagant, you do have to do it one by one. In Battlefield 1, if you've actually fired all of the rounds in the revolver, there's a second reload animation that I don't think is really any faster, it's just different. So here's how that works. You unscrew the ejector rod and you rotate it just enough out of the way to let that pin right there that holds the cylinder in place to come out. And what's funny about this is, let me put it back in a little bit, if you turn it just a little bit too far like that, which is the natural motion is to crank it all the way to the side, now it's blocking the pin again. So you have to rotate it, but not too much. It's so finicky. At that point though, with the pin that holds the cylinder out of the way, you can open the cylinder gate and just rotate it out of the revolver like that. And so in theory, you could have a second cylinder in your pouch that already has the ammo in it. You guys can see right here on the back, the notches that make the rotation of the cylinder possible. Sure, those are steel, but you don't want to ever force the cylinder back into the revolver. You've got to hold all of these parts. Imagine being in a trench under artillery fire and holding all these parts and trying not to drop anything. 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so there are 7. Now, you've got to hold that spring, that plug that allows it to rotate down to let it slide in. And if you go too far, you have to do it again. You can't force it. You have to rotate it into place. There it goes. Not an easy action to do even just sitting here. Look, I didn't drop my pin. because I'm not under fire. So the pin goes back in, like that, and then we just close the ejector rod like that. Again, a weird number of turns to tighten it up. Not very easy to tell where it stops. And we're finally loaded once again. I don't think either one of those reload methods are very fast or efficient, but it is a lot of fun to shoot. Not a whole lot of recoil, only a 97 grain bullet. So let's put a few more down range. As you guys can tell by the name, this revolver was invented by the co-inventor of the Mosin Nagant battle rifle. The Tsar and the military officials of Russia were a big fan of the work of these guys. This revolver specifically is known as the model of 1895 Nagant. The Nagant would serve under not only the Tsarist army, but the Red Army of the Soviet Union as well, meaning it fought in both of the world wars. This revolver saw service throughout that entire time period, but in very different ways. This particular one I looked very hard for because it is an Imperial Tsarist revolver. This one is dated 1909, so it was produced just a few years before the outbreak of World War I. There's a good chance that this revolver specifically may have seen service on the Eastern Front against, say, Germany. What a lot of people don't realize is when the Tsar and his family were killed, they were killed with 7 Nagant revolvers. So again, this revolver has a really fascinating history. It saw service in the Tsarist army. It was later used to kill him and his family. And a lot of these Tsarist pre-World War I revolvers were later converted to have Soviet stars on them once the Soviet Union needed more of them for military service on into the 1930s and 40s. Again, I was very excited to find one that hadn't been marred whatsoever. There is one very tiny star on the back of the rod here, but for the most part, all of the Imperial seals are still intact, and that is a bit rare. Translated, the acrylic characters on the revolver read Tula Imperial Arms Factory. So again, this was a Tsarist era production of the Nagant revolver. Even though the semi-automatic pistols like the Makarov in the 1950s and the Tokarov in the 1940s were becoming standard issue for the Soviet Union, there were so many of these, even in the World War II time period, that they remained very, very popular. Again, a very outdated ejection system, but one Soviet commander once joked that if you ever have a problem with your Nagant revolver, you can fix it with a hammer. They were easy to use and basically unstoppable. That was awesome. Those are always fun. It's almost like you have to have like a punchy action to get it out. But even then, sometimes. Yeah, so that one is stuck in the cylinder, even punching it pretty hard. There we go. I love in Battlefield 1, you can like do this while like vaulting over things, running and sprinting, and you're just loading the whole time. It's like, holy crap, that guy's got dexterity, man. You know he's good in bed. I'm gonna go for more of an isosceles stance here and try to hit some of these cans in single action. But I am no Hickok 45, so. Is that a double, I think? Not bad. It's actually, for a 100-year-old pistol, quite accurate. As usual, more accurate than I am. That jingle pleases me. The sound of brass in the morning. The sound of 50 cents a round just fluttering away. I managed to find some original ammo for the Nagant revolver. This is most likely World War II era, or possibly even onto the 70s. It's really hard to tell, but the cardboard box just kind of makes it right there. You'll notice it is 7.62 Nagant. This was decided on for the caliber for the revolver because it could share a lot of the tooling with the Mosin Nagant's ammunition production. Let's take a closer look at the unique ammo and how it works with the Nagant's gas sealing system. Here's what makes this ammunition unique. I have an unfired cartridge right here, again with that bullet crimped down inside of the brass. As you guys can see here, the fired cartridge has expanded at the mouth, whereas the unfired cartridge has a little bit of a crimp to it which holds the bullet in place. What that crimp does is allows the brass to enter the barrel and create a gas seal at the front of the cylinder, which is very unusual for revolvers. Most revolvers have what's called a flash gap right here, where the bullet actually travels about sometimes up to 1/4 millimeter before it actually enters the barrel and begins spinning down the rifling. The Nagant, however, when you cock it, if you watch the cylinder, creates a gas seal. As we cock it, watch the cylinder, it's going to go forward just a bit. There we go. So with a round in the cylinder, it's now created a gas seal, so there's no flash gap. What that gas seal means, because no gas actually escapes out of the cylinder gap right there, is that this is the only revolver in the world that I'm aware of that can actually be suppressed, because the gases do come out of the end of the barrel. The Nagant revolver was very popular with the KGB during the Cold War as an assassination weapon. And the CIA actually has one from the Vietnam War that was caught on a Viet Cong assassin with a suppressor attached. If you guys play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, you can actually suppress the Nagant revolver in that game as well. And again, that's because of that unique cylinder seal property. Just like that. Now that we've seen how this revolver works in real life, let's see how it works in Battlefield 1. As you might imagine, I have spent a lot of time with the Nagant 1895 in Battlefield 1 working on this video, and to my surprise, despite some rather unexciting stats in the game for the Nagant 1895, it's become one of my favorite pistols in the game. Especially compared against some of the other revolvers that Battlefield 1 offers, the lack of damage on the Nagant is an immediate downside, as well as the, of course, super long reload, which is most definitely accurately modeled here in Battlefield 1. The Battlefield 1 version of the Nagant makes up for the very long reload and lackluster damage by providing a very slight muzzle climb and fast follow-up shots. Just like real life, it's very, very controllable. While you're not going to be clearing rooms with the Nagant in Battlefield 1, it is fantastic for quickly taking out single enemies. Beyond how the pistol handles though, dice being dice, the weapon is absolutely beautifully modeled and rendered in-game. Both of the reload methods that I've talked about are present in the game. You have the slower single ejection reload 1x1, and you also have the option to pop that cylinder out and replace it entirely with a loaded one that your infantryman has handy. Of course, because this is a game, your soldier in Battlefield 1 never makes a mistake, and the reloads go perfectly every single time. I doubt that would be the case in real life, as I struggled multiple times with just getting the timing of the ejection rod correct. As usual, props to DICE for not only a accurately modeled, textured, and animated weapon, but one that is in fact fun to use in the game. Next up, let's take an exclusive look at the Nagant 1895 revolver in the upcoming World War I FPS game Tannenberg. This is a sequel to the very realistic World War I FPS Verdun, which I was a big fan of. This is the first work-in-progress footage that has been shown of the 1895 in Tannenberg. Big thanks to the devs for providing it for this video. I am really looking forward to trying this out in-game for myself, but as you guys can see, they are dead on with their animations. It looks great. Here in Tannenberg, the soldier actually loads a new round for each empty round that they eject, which makes me wonder if that wouldn't be faster than ejecting all the rounds at the same time and then going back and loading the new ammo like I was doing. Again, thank you to the devs for providing the footage. I can't wait to try out the game for myself. Just listen to those ambient sound effects. This pistol is a single action and double action pistol. Historically, in World War I, soldiers were only offered, if you were a private, the single action version. Single action means you have to cock the hammer for every single shot. You might notice I've been doing that today because the single action trigger, because it just drops the hammer, is a much nicer trigger pull. Let me show you guys the difference between single action and double action. In double action, which was issued to the officers, perhaps because they could be trusted maybe to be a bit more disciplined with their shooting and not waste ammo, the double action trigger is much heavier, and it's honestly one of the worst double action triggers I've ever used. So let me show you guys the difference. So we're gonna cock it, single action right here. I'm just gonna fire a one-handed shot so you guys can see. Not too bad. Not an amazing trigger pull, but not terrible either. The main thing to watch for here, guys, is that in double action mode, the trigger pull has to both cock and release the hammer, whereas in single action, all the trigger has to do is drop the hammer, which results in a much shorter, smoother, and nicer pull. So what we're gonna do next is double action. So I'm gonna use both hands for this. So pull, 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 over the target. Pull, 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 over the target. I'm just up and to the right because of the exertion of that pull. Let's do a single action. Pulling. Perfect. Single action. Got it. Most of these revolvers were converted to double action after World War I, so it's hard to say if this was originally a single action private's model or originally the double action officer's model. It is double action either way right now. There is a refurbished mark on the revolver, but it's hard to tell which parts were removed. So seeing I can't tell, I would hazard a guess that it was the trigger action that was changed to make it into a double action. Just for fun, let's see which of the two Battlefield 1 reload methods are going to be the fastest. So when Jeff gives me the signal, I'm going to start ejecting cartridges one by one for the 1x1 reload. Go. All right, gate open, ejector rod out, rotate, hammer down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're good. New ammo. It's actually very hard to hold the ammo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Close the gate, rotate the lever back, close it, and we're good. That actually went better than I thought it was going to. All the rounds ejected for one thing, but man, that is not a fast reload. 41 seconds according to Jeff's timer here. Okay guys, let's try it with a cylinder swap. On your mark, Jeff. Go. All right, gate open. We're gonna take the lever out like this, rotate it, take the pin out, pause. Take like 1 second off the top. So that wasn't too bad. Don't forget though, I've got to hold this pin somehow and get the extra cylinder out of my bag. Wish me luck. On your mark, Jeff. Go. Okay, got to hold the plunger down for the cylinder. Rotate it. That actually, I think we got it. So then the pin goes in, but down. Rotate, close, and we're good. 20 seconds. That's pretty wild. Better than I expected, actually. Pretty cool. Final impressions, guys. This is a super fun revolver to shoot because it has almost no recoil, and despite the awkward reloads, it is just a lot of fun. Additionally, thank you, Joel, for coming out and filming for me.
Hey, no problem.
You can see some of Joel's work on his website. What was it, Joel? NormanTheFilm.com? We're getting really good at that. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
See ya.